Walz made himself fair game, since his only attack was that the other guy was weird. Because everyone is weird, the more you get to know them. It's why marriage is a commitment. Over time, both spouses realize we're all bat crazy. But there's weird and there's dangerously insane. And that's thinking children can decide to have themselves castrated. And that's Tim. Kamala Harris has created her own scented candle. And just like her, it gets lit every night. She's a drunk.
Greg Gutfeld just went in with a laugh-out-loud takedown of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, taking aim at what he sees as weak spots in their political game. With sharp sarcasm and quick jokes, he poked fun at Kamala's long, winding answers and Walz's softer leadership style, like he was on a roll and not slowing down. From Kamala's awkward laughs to Walz's mini task forces, nothing was off limits. If political spin had a face, Gutfeld basically called it out and turned it into a punchline.
CBS's 60 Minutes was caught editing their interview with Kamala Harris to make her look better. It's a shocking ethical lapse. Mike Wallace must be rolling in his grave. Not over this, though, but that his son is Chris Wallace.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
You know, that's some bad weed. Generally, when people get high, they actually have some interesting thoughts. Not her.
Gutfeld didn't just show up that night. He came in like a comedian on a full-on sarcasm mission, with sharp jokes and a grin that basically said, "This might hurt." He took aim at Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It wasn't just a roast, it felt more like a full double takedown. And by the time he was done, the political stage looked pretty shaken up.
Remained a constant, then what impacted the polls? And it's driven by identity politics.
We're gonna cook today.
Okay.
Is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes. Yeah. And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're gonna do it again in 2024.
What would Trump have to say about Kamala's qualifications?
Well, you know, she's flip-flopping, Greg. I mean, these are flip-flops. And Indian people and blacks wear flip-flops, which is good. But
He kicked things off with Kamala, the vice president, whose resume feels like a career in government and whose speaking style can come off a bit like a glitchy GPS. Gutfeld zeroed in on the unusual flow of her public remarks, those careful phrases that twist and turn like a freestyle that got a little too complicated. Every time she speaks, he jokes, you're never quite sure if it's a policy point or something closer to spoken word poetry.
One of them, Politico says, is like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that?
sorry. Still.
He compared her delivery to someone who just discovered metaphors and now uses them on everything, whether they fit or not. When it came to substance, Gutfeld said she often skims over issues without going very deep. In Phoenix, he joked that asking her to explain inflation was like asking a cat to do your taxes. Plenty of noise, but not much result. He added that she tends to circle around big topics carefully, like they might break, filling the space with a nervous laugh and a mix of words that feels a bit all over the place.
With Walz, it's hard to even bring him up. He has a resting snitch face. You know? I mean, he forfeited his man card during COVID and the riots. And you're right. And also, at that diner, of course, he left early. So don't you find it weird that for a terrifying threat to democracy that Trump is, not a single interviewer in his history has approached him with trepidation?
If you were hoping for clarity, it sometimes sounded like a TED Talk from someone who skipped rehearsal. He pointed out her well-known habit of sidestepping tough questions, saying watching her in interviews felt like someone playing dodgeball with facts. Whenever reality came her way, she'd lean on lines like, "Let's be clear," without ever really clearing things up. He compared it to a cooking show where the chef explains lasagna using only cloud metaphors and a nervous laugh. Plenty of talk, not much insight. Just a swirl of confusion. Then he shifted to the border issue, something she's been linked to but rarely seems to engage with directly. Gutfeld joked it's like a gym membership, technically there, but not often used. He said she talks about it as if it might sort itself out if left alone, adding that she seems more likely to show up on Mars than at the border. And when immigration does come up, he said she handles it with the urgency of a distant weather update.
I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Walz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it, they shake, he pulls her close, and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh yeah, weird.
Just when the audience thought it couldn't get any sharper, Gutfeld turned to Tim Walz. He joked that if Kamala brings the confusion, Walz brings the hesitation. Gutfeld described him as the kind of leader who walks into a crisis with a clipboard and leaves with a shrug. Under his watch, he said, Minnesota started to feel less like a success story and more like a tangle of red tape. Gutfeld poked fun at Walz's lockdown rules like someone who sat through every Zoom call, mask update, and mixed message. He painted him as a captain just drifting through rules and restrictions, like a DJ playing tracks no one asked for. One day gyms are closed, the next they're open with odd conditions. It all feels inconsistent. Health policy, he joked, seemed like it was written by a committee running on pure chaos.
As a teacher, my number one responsibility in the classroom is the safety, security, and belongingness of every single child in that room. These are children my son's age, a 4th grader, a 10-year-old who just wants to go to the bathroom. And their identity is they are male or female, and they just go in that bathroom and use it, end quote. Sounds so folksy, you know? Belongingness. Yeah, they'll be belonging in therapy with this guy at the helm.
He didn't go easy on Walz when it came to the crime spike either. Gutfeld said Walz treated the rise in violence like a rumor he hoped would just fade away. In his view, Minnesota's major cities became centers of unrest, while Walz responded with meetings, more statements to the press, and a steady look of mild concern. Gutfeld described him as someone who read the leadership playbook in reverse, starting with blaming others and skipping the part about taking action. Watching Walz speak to reporters, he said, felt like a substitute teacher trying to explain quantum physics to a room full of kindergartners. Awkward, out of place, and clearly lost. He also mocked his lack of presence, calling it soggy mop dull, and said his vision was about as sharp as a bat's in daylight. In his telling, Walz didn't really lead, he stalled. He didn't decide, he delayed. And when problems escalated, he acted like someone else had hidden the fuse.
Question of what can be unburdened by what has been.
We see what can be unburdened by what has been.
To see what can be unburdened by what has been.
Believing in what can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Having faith in what can be unburdened by what has been.
See what can be unburdened by what has been. To see what can be unburdened by what has been.
You know, if Kamala gets dementia, it would be an improvement.
But Gutfeld wasn't finished. He circled back to Kamala with the focus of a seasoned roast master. He brought up her time as California's Attorney General, saying her reforms often felt more aimed at headlines than real justice. He also joked that her stance on past positions seemed to change depending on who she was speaking to, calling her a kind of political chameleon that constantly updates itself like it's connected to Wi-Fi.
This administration and the spouse swapping of the VP and the president, we saw it before. Like, Dr. Jill didn't kiss Joe like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And now he couldn't wait to get that full embrace. It wasn't a bro hug, it was a yo hug. And he put his wife in the friend zone.
Yes.
Which is always, that must have been a fun car ride home.
Yeah.
Why can't you hug me like her husband? I mean, it's weird.
It is weird. You know, Joey, I think that it's okay to take Walz's picadillos, if you call it, apart, because remember, he broke the seal by calling Vance weird, and we're all weird, including him.
Yeah, I'm with.
He also pointed out her awkward public moments where she sometimes bursts into laughter at the worst times, almost like she's buffering in real life. Gutfeld joked that Kamala's nervous giggle could power a small wind farm and usually shows up right when she realizes she doesn't have an answer. Asking her a simple question, he said, is like setting off a Rube Goldberg machine, complicated, noisy, and going nowhere useful. Then he circled back to Walz, saying there was still plenty to criticize, especially his reliance on task forces and committees, where every issue from crime to potholes turns into another study or panel, like a giant delay machine. He compared it to piling up laundry and hoping someone else handles it, and also mocked education results under his watch, saying test scores dropped, while funding went into programs that sounded like rejected TED Talk ideas, leaving kids more focused on buzzwords than actual learning.
Kamala Harris is the Democrat candidate for president of the United States. I'll give you a second to come to. The border czar who couldn't find our southern border on a map of Texas now wants to be America's commander-in-chief. Kamala couldn't lead a campfire sing-along, let alone the country's armed forces. But does that matter? Not to the media. Now, they would like this framed as a team sport battle, left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. But in reality, it's the media narrative machine versus reality.
He paired their flaws like someone pointing out a matching set of dysfunction. Kamala's confusion, he said, fit with Walz's indecision, two sides of a shaky coin. One delivers speeches that come out scrambled, while the other runs things like he lost momentum halfway through. Together, Gutfeld joked, they're like a buffering Wi-Fi signal, always trying to connect, never quite getting there. He wrapped it up by mocking their combined effect, saying Kamala shows up with half-formed inspiration while Walz tries to manage everything as if leadership can be microwaved. Put them in a room to solve a problem, he joked, and Kamala would serve up a word salad so tangled even AI would struggle, while Walz would call for a task force and quietly slip out before anything actually got done.
Who made her first major speech last night since Trump took office, and it was another classic ball of verbal vomit. Here she is referencing a viral video of elephants. Watch.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake?
Gutfeld also criticized Kamala's carefully shaped public image, saying it was built like a shaky Jenga tower made of friendly interviews, positive headlines, and polished empathy. He contrasted it with Walz's plain, dull presence, joking it felt like a 404 error trying to run a state. In his view, neither seemed to truly lead, but both were skilled at avoiding accountability. What got the audience laughing most was his comparison of Kamala's vice presidency to a group project where she barely shows up but still wants credit, while Walz runs Minnesota like he's still waiting for the tutorial to finish loading.
Speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz, he joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DEI, and we let them define what woke.
Finally came the knockout line. Gutfeld argued that both Kamala and Walz are what happens when style beats substance. In his words, they're like wrapping an empty box in shiny paper. He called Kamala's laugh a national mystery, while saying Walz's vision for the future is almost like an urban legend. He joked that if Walz ever announced a bold plan, you'd need a translator and plenty of time just to figure it out. He painted the scene of Kamala at a podium saying things that sound meaningful until you replay them and realize they're mostly empty noise, and Walz standing next to her with a binder full of buzzwords, not even sure which page he's on. Together, he said, they're like a duet with no melody. Both talking, but neither really saying anything. And Gutfeld added, he wasn't even done. Because as long as Kamala keeps speaking in riddles and Walz governs like he's reading invisible instructions, there will always be another headline to mock, another policy to laugh at, and another moment ready for him to roast.